Cancel your appointment and come clean up this mess. It's the least you can do, my daughter Jennifer said. When I answered no, she stood up and screamed in front of everyone. You're losing it, Dad. You can't make decisions anymore. I grabbed my jacket and walked out without looking back. Days later, she lost everything. Those words came out of Jennifer's mouth like she had every right to say them. We were at Ashley's school fundraiser, BBQ. Maybe 30 parents and neighbors scattered around picnic tables under the oak trees behind Lincoln Elementary. The smell of burgers on the grill mixed with that crisp April air that reminds you spring's finally here in Chicago. Kids were running around with their faces painted, teachers were manning the bounce house, and there was that comfortable buzz of community you get at these things. I'm Richard Miller, 72 years old, and I was holding my phone to my ear when everything went sideways. On the other end was Mr. Wallace from Heritage, Antiques downtown. He'd just offered me $90,000 for my father's vintage Omega pocket watch, the one Dad carried through the Korean War, the one that had been sitting in my workshop drawer for 40 years collecting dust. $90,000. After 12 years of living like a hired hand in my own house, it was my ticket to something better. But Jennifer didn't care about any of that. She planted herself right in front of me, wearing those designer heels that probably cost more than my monthly Social Security check. Her boyfriend Charles was lounging at the picnic table behind her, scrolling through his phone instead of helping with the cleanup like everyone else's family members were doing. Dad, are you even listening to me? There are paper plates everywhere. Kids spilled juice on 3 tables. Cancel that ridiculous call and start cleaning up. After everything we do for you, it's the least you can manage. I felt something snap inside me. Maybe it was the tone. Maybe it was that word, manage, like I was some kind of invalid who needed supervision. I'd been fixing things with my hands since before Jennifer was born. 35 years as a union plumber, maintaining a 2,800 square foot house, rebuilding car engines in my spare time. But somehow I'd become the guy who couldn't manage basic tasks. I lowered the phone and looked Jennifer straight in the eyes. For the first time in 12 years of keeping my mouth shut and going along to get along, I said no. The silence that followed was something else. Even the kids on the playground seemed to quiet down. Mrs. Peterson from Ashley's class stopped stacking folding chairs and glanced over. Jennifer blinked twice like she hadn't heard me right. What did you say? I said no, Jennifer. I'm on an important call. Her face changed completely. That fake sweetness she'd been using melted away, and what came up from underneath was pure rage. She shot up from her chair so fast it nearly toppled over. Ashley, my 12-year-old granddaughter, looked up from the drawing she was coloring with tears starting in her eyes. Then Jennifer screamed. Right there in front of Ashley's teachers, her classmates' parents, neighbors I'd known for decades. You're losing it! You can't make basic decisions anymore! You're not competent to handle your own affairs? The volunteer manning the grill turned around. The principal, who'd been chatting with other parents near the school entrance, started walking over with concern on her face. Ashley dropped her crayons and ran toward the bathroom, probably to hide from the embarrassment. And just like that, I understood something I'd been too stubborn or too tired to see for years. This wasn't about cleaning up paper plates. This wasn't even about the phone call, really. This was about control. This was about Jennifer establishing, in front of witnesses, that her 72-year-old father wasn't competent to make his own decisions. I picked up my worn leather jacket, the one my wife Betty bought me for our 35th anniversary, before the cancer took her 10 years ago. I ran my hand over the familiar material, feeling the softness that comes from years of wear, remembering the woman who'd picked it out, because she said it made me look distinguished. I took one last look around that picnic area, at the other families packing up their folding chairs and leftover food, probably relieved they weren't part of whatever drama was unfolding at our table. At Charles, still staring at his phone like nothing was happening. At Jennifer, standing there with her fists clenched, waiting for me to back down like I had 1,000 times before. Then, I walked out with my head up, even though inside I felt like everything was crumbling. What Jennifer didn't know, what she couldn't have imagined while she was screaming at me in front of half the school community, was that the call she interrupted wasn't just any call. Mr. Wallace was waiting for my answer about Dad's watch, the same watch that had been sitting in my workshop for decades, waiting for the right moment. The watch Dad told me to sell when I really needed to. That moment had arrived. But what I discovered in the days that followed was worse than I ever imagined. And Jennifer, with all her yelling and her plans and her assumptions about what her old man could or couldn't handle, had no idea that her little public performance had just sealed her fate. Let me back up and tell you how a 72-year-old retired plumber who owned his own house free and clear ended up feeling like hired help in the place he'd called home for 40 years. It started 10 years ago when Betty died. The cancer came fast. Too fast. One day she was out in her garden, deadheading the roses and complaining about the aphids. The next, she was gone. The house felt enormous after that, filled with echoes and empty coffee cups, and the ghost of conversations we'd never have again. Jennifer started coming around more after the funeral, bringing Ashley, who was just 2 then. Sweet little thing with Betty's eyes and my stubborn chin. "Dad, you can't stay alone in this big place," Jennifer would say, while bouncing the baby on her knee. "Why don't Charles and I move in? That way you won't be by yourself, and we can help with the mortgage and utilities." It sounded reasonable. It sounded like family taking care of family. It sounded like the kind of thing Betty would have wanted. Her granddaughter growing up in the house where we'd planned to grow old together. How wrong I was. In the beginning, Jennifer was different. Helpful, even affectionate. She'd make dinner, ask how I slept, give me hugs when I looked sad about Betty. She'd bring Ashley over to play in the backyard, and we'd all sit on the porch afterward drinking iced tea while the kid chased fireflies. I thought I'd gained not just live-in family, but real companionship. Someone to fill the silence that had been eating away at me since Betty passed. The change was so gradual I didn't see it coming. It started small, the way these things always do. A comment about my cooking. "Dad, don't you think you use too much salt in the eggs?" Then about my clothes. "At your age, you should dress more conservatively. That Hawaiian shirt makes you look like you're trying too hard." Then about my friends from the VFW. "Those old guys just sit around complaining about the government. You're wasting your time with that crowd." When Ashley turned 4, Jennifer quit her job at the insurance office. "I need to focus on Ashley full-time," she said. "Being a working mom is exhausting, and Charles's construction work doesn't pay enough for quality daycare." Made sense at the time. Single mothers have it tough, and I wanted Ashley to have the best care possible. But somehow I ended up doing most of the actual child care. Getting up at 2 a.m. when Ashley had nightmares about monsters under her bed. Making her breakfast before school because Jennifer was too tired from staying up with her. Anxiety. Picking her up from Lincoln Elementary at 3 p.m. while Jennifer went to yoga class or met friends for coffee. "Dad, being a mom is exhausting. I need breaks to recharge, or I'll burn out completely." I stayed quiet because I loved Ashley like she was my own daughter. Because I thought this was what family did. Supported each other through tough times. Because Betty always said family comes first, no matter what. But there was one day that marked the real beginning of my problems. Ashley was about 6, playing with her dolls in the living room. I was in the kitchen fixing a leaky faucet under the sink, the kind of job I could do blindfolded after 35 years in the trade, when I heard a crash. Jennifer had accidentally knocked over a full cup of coffee. Hot coffee, all over the kitchen floor. I watched her do it through the cabinet opening. Our eyes met for just a second, and I saw something cold there I'd never noticed before. "Oh, I'm so clumsy," she said with this smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Dad, can you clean this up when you're done? You're not doing anything urgent anyway." Something in her tone made my blood run cold. It wasn't a request. It was an order dressed up as an accident, and we both knew it. I cleaned up that coffee. And the next accident the following week. And the one after that. Pretty soon, I was cleaning up messes that Jennifer somehow kept making. Spilled juice, dropped food, knocked over plants. Always when I was in the middle of something else. Always with that same fake apologetic tone. The next few years were a steady slide downhill. I got assigned tasks like I was part of the house inventory instead of the guy who owned the place. Cook breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Do everyone's laundry in the basement. Clean all 3 bathrooms every Tuesday. Mow the lawn, trim the hedges, fix whatever broke. Meanwhile, Jennifer and Charles went to fancy restaurants downtown. They took long weekends in Wisconsin Dells. They went to concerts at Navy Pier and came back with pictures on Jennifer's phone of them looking tanned and happy. For me, they'd bring back a cheap souvenir, usually something with Chicago written on it in tourist trap lettering. "Dad, I saw this keychain and thought of you," Jennifer would say, handing me something that clearly cost about $3 at a gift shop. The real turning point came 8 years ago. I was in my bedroom, the master bedroom I'd shared with Betty for 35 years, where we'd planned out our retirement and talked about traveling to see the Grand Canyon, when Jennifer walked in without knocking. "Dad, we need this room. It's bigger, and Charles needs space for his gaming setup and his exercise equipment. You'll be more comfortable in the storage room by the garage. It's cozy, and you'll have more privacy." The storage room, 10 feet by 8 feet, next to the garage where car exhaust seeped through the thin walls, where the water heater kicked on every hour and woke me up with its rumbling, where it was freezing in winter because the heating vent was blocked by boxes, and sweltering in summer because there was no air conditioning duct. "I don't know, Jennifer. That room is pretty small." "Dad, you don't need much space. It's not like you're entertaining guests or anything, and this room has the walk-in closet, which Charles really needs for his work clothes." Charles worked construction 3 days a week and spent the other 4 playing video games and drinking beer, but somehow he needed a walk-in closet more than the man who'd been paying the mortgage on this house for 40 years. I moved to the storage room because I didn't know how to say no. because Jennifer made it sound logical, reasonable, because I was still grieving Betty and didn't have the energy to fight about room arrangements. But the room wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the loneliness, the feeling that I'd become invisible in my own house, that my opinions didn't matter, my comfort didn't count. My presence was just something to be managed and contained. My only escape was Wednesdays. Every Wednesday at 2 p.m., I met with my workshop group at William Torres's garage on Maple Street. 6 of us old guys, all veterans or retirees, working on car restoration projects, sharing tools and stories, and the kind of easy conversation you can only have with people who've earned their gray hair the hard way. William had been my friend for 30 years, since we both served in the Army Reserves and worked union jobs around the city. His garage was where I felt like myself again. Competent, useful, respected. Where my hands knew what they were doing, and my voice mattered. We'd work on old Mustangs and Camaros, rebuilding engines and restoring chrome, drinking coffee from paper cups, and talking about everything except the things that were slowly eating us alive at home. Jennifer hated those Wednesdays with a passion that seemed way out of proportion to a few hours with my friends. Dad, Ashley needs help with her homework. You're being selfish, running off to play with your toys when your family needs you. But I went anyway. It was the only thing I had left that felt like mine. 3 months before the school BBQ disaster, something happened that should have opened my eyes completely. It was my 72nd birthday, and I'd asked Jennifer a month ahead if I could use the garage to show my workshop buddies the Mustang engine I'd been rebuilding. Nothing fancy, just some cake, a few beers, some conversation with people who remembered when I was more than just a burden to be managed. "Of course, Dad. It's your house too," she said with that perfect smile I'd learned not to trust completely. The day of my birthday, I came back from picking up the sheet cake from Jewel Osco. Had my name written in blue frosting and everything. I hit the garage door opener and found the whole space filled with Charles's poker buddies, loud classic rock on the radio, beer bottles covering my workbench, cigarette smoke so thick I could barely see my tool cabinet. "Dad, perfect timing," Jennifer called out from the doorway to the kitchen. "Charles organized a last-minute game. Can you grab us more ice from the freezer and maybe some of those chips from the pantry?" My workshop friends were waiting at William's house. I had to call each one individually and cancel. "Something came up," I told them, my voice nearly breaking when I heard the disappointment in William's response. "Richard, what's really going on over there? You've been different lately." "Nothing, William. Everything's fine." But nothing was fine. That day, while I served ice and snacks to Charles's poker buddies in my own garage on my own birthday, something inside me started to die. Or maybe it started to wake up. Because 3 months later, at Ashley's school BBQ, when Jennifer screamed at me that I couldn't make my own decisions anymore, that part of me that had been asleep for 12 years finally said enough. I went straight to William's house after I walked out of that school. He took one look at my face when he opened the door and didn't ask any questions. Just handed me a beer from his kitchen and waited for me to talk. When I finally told him everything, not just about the BBQ, but all of it, the years of small humiliations and gradual erosion, William set his beer down hard on his kitchen table. "Richard, where are the papers for your house?" I blinked, confused by the change of subject. "In the study, but that's Jennifer's office now. She keeps everything locked up in file cabinets." William disappeared into his spare bedroom and came back with a manila folder. Property deeds, insurance documents, all the paperwork Betty and I had signed when we bought the house 40 years ago for $78,000. "When Betty died, did you sign anything transferring ownership?" I thought back through those awful first months after the funeral. The lawyers, the will reading, the insurance claims. "No. Betty left everything to me in her will. There was nothing to transfer. I was already on all the documents." "Then the house is still in your name, Richard. Your name only. Not Jennifer's, not Charles's. Yours." Those words hit me like ice water. For 12 years, I'd felt like a guest who should be grateful for a place to sleep. Jennifer had said it to me so many times, after everything we do for you, that I'd started believing I was living on their charity. But the house was mine. The mortgage had been paid off for 15 years. "You need to talk to my nephew, Stephen," William said. "He's a lawyer downtown, specializes in family law, elder abuse cases. It's more common than you think, Richard, and it's a crime." 2 days later, I was sitting in Stephen Rodriguez's office on LaSalle Street. 3rd floor, no elevator, but I climbed those stairs with more energy than I'd felt in years. Stephen was about 45, with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses and a firm handshake that reminded me of his uncle. "Mr. Miller, Uncle William told me about your situation. I did some preliminary research with the information he gave me, and there are things you need to know immediately." He opened a thick folder on his desk. "Jennifer Miller, 39 years old. She owes $280,000 across multiple credit cards, personal loans, and private debts. I couldn't breathe. Nearly $300,000. The credit reports show a pattern of escalating debt over the past 5 years. Luxury purchases, expensive vacations, restaurant bills that exceed most people's monthly rent. Your house is currently assessed at $2.8 million. If she could gain control and sell it, she'd solve all her financial problems and have substantial money left over. But the house is in my name. Correct. As long as you're alive and mentally competent, no one can touch that property without your consent. He paused, and something in his expression made my stomach drop. But if someone had you declared mentally incompetent, your daughter could petition the court for guardianship. With guardianship comes the legal authority to make decisions about your assets, including selling real estate. The word alive echoed in my head in ways I didn't like at all. What evidence would she need for something like that? Stephen pulled out another document. Typically, witness testimony about erratic behavior, memory loss, inability to manage finances. Medical evaluation from a psychiatrist. It's not as hard as you might think, especially if the alleged incompetent person doesn't fight back effectively. What can I do? Stephen leaned forward, his expression serious. First, we protect you legally. Second, we document everything that's happening. And third, we prepare for what's almost certainly coming next. Which is what? She's going to accelerate her timeline. The confrontation at the school, the public questioning of your competency. That wasn't spontaneous anger, Mr. Miller. That was setting the stage for witnesses to say they observed concerning behavior. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, looking down into an abyss I hadn't even known existed. How do we fight this? Stephen opened his desk drawer and pulled out a digital voice recorder. We gather evidence, every conversation, every demand, every threat, and we wait for her to make a mistake big enough that we can act on it. I went home that night knowing everything had changed, but Jennifer didn't know it yet. When I walked back into that house, Jennifer was waiting in the living room with tears in her eyes. Real tears, or at least tears that looked real from a distance. Dad, I'm so sorry about what happened at the school. I was stressed about Ashley's grades, worried about money, and I just lost it. You know how I get when I'm overwhelmed. She hugged me, but it felt hollow, like hugging a mannequin. As I stood there smelling her expensive perfume, Stephen's words echoed in my mind. Document everything. Be prepared for what's coming next. I decided right then that if Jennifer was playing chess, I was going to learn the game fast. But she had no idea she'd just woken up someone who'd spent 12 years studying all her moves. The next few days were strange. Jennifer acted like we were best friends. She brought me coffee in the morning, asked how I'd slept, even offered to help with dinner. The performance was so perfect it was almost funny. Except I knew what was underneath it now. That Thursday, I went to my workshop group as usual. Jennifer didn't object. Of course, Dad. Enjoy your time with the guys. You deserve it. At William's garage, I told the others what Stephen had found. These were good men. Tommy Kowalski, who'd served 2 tours in Vietnam, Eddie Martinez, who'd worked at the steel mills for 30 years, Jim Patterson, who'd been a Chicago cop for 25. They understood what it meant to protect what you'd built with your own hands. We've got your back, Richard, William said, and the others nodded. Whatever you need, whenever you need it. Saturday morning, while Jennifer and Charles had taken Ashley to Navy Pier, I went back to Stephen's office. This time he had a thick manila folder waiting for me. I made some calls to contacts in the financial sector, he said. Jennifer doesn't just owe $280,000. There are private loans, money borrowed from friends and family that doesn't show up on official credit reports. We're looking at closer to $350,000 in total debt. He opened the folder, and my blood went cold. There's something else. I found preliminary paperwork in the property records system. Someone's been practicing forging your signature, Mr. Miller. The documents looked official. Property transfer papers, power of attorney forms, even a healthcare directive, all with signatures that looked like mine, but weren't. These haven't been filed yet, Stephen explained, but they're ready to go. My guess is she's waiting to establish a pattern of incompetent behavior before she tries to use them. What's the timeline? Stephen closed the folder. Soon. The public confrontation at the school was phase 1. She'll escalate from here. Probably try to provoke you into saying or doing something she can use as evidence. He was right. 3 days later, Jennifer made her move. I was in the garage Tuesday evening, working on the Mustang engine, when she came storming in. No fake sweetness this time, no pretense of concern. Dad, we need to settle this watch situation right now. I've arranged everything with the buyer. We're going to the bank tomorrow morning to set up the sale and the renovation loans. I reached into my pocket and activated the voice recorder app on my phone, just like Stephen had taught me. I haven't agreed to sell Dad's watch, Jennifer. Her mask slipped completely. You don't have a choice anymore. Charles and I have been supporting you for years. It's time you contributed something meaningful to this family, instead of being dead weight. This is my house, Jennifer. She laughed, a cold, bitter sound that echoed off the garage walls. Your house? Dad, you can barely remember what day it is half the time. Charles and I make all the real decisions around here. We pay the bills, we maintain the property, we take care of Ashley. You just exist here. That's not true, isn't it? When's the last time you balanced a checkbook? When's the last time you handled any real responsibility? You're 72 years old and you're becoming a burden we can't afford anymore. My hands were steady as I kept the recording going. What are you saying, Jennifer? I'm saying you have two choices. Sign the papers for the watch sale tomorrow, or Charles and I start making some hard decisions about your living situation. There are nice facilities for people your age, Dad. Places where trained professionals can keep an eye on you. Are you threatening to put me in a nursing home? I'm telling you what happens to old men who can't take care of themselves, who make poor financial decisions, who worry their families with their declining mental state. She stared at me for a long moment, probably realizing she'd said too much. Then she turned and stormed back into the house. I immediately called Stephen. I got it all. She just threatened me with a nursing home if I don't sell the watch. Every word is on the recording. That's enough, Stephen said. We're filing charges first thing Monday morning. But we didn't have to wait that long. Sunday morning, Jennifer organized what she called a family intervention. About 15 people gathered in my living room. Her mother, her sister, some neighbors, even Charles's brother from Milwaukee. I walked into my own living room to find them arranged in a circle with an empty chair in the middle, like I was on trial. Sit down, Dad, Jennifer said with fake authority. We all just want to help you make the right decisions. Instead of sitting, I pulled out my phone and played the garage recording for everyone to hear. Jennifer's voice filled the room, clear as day, threatening me with nursing home placement. The faces around that circle changed fast. Shock, discomfort, embarrassment. Jennifer's mother looked like she wanted to disappear. Jennifer, her sister said slowly, what exactly is going on with your finances? Before Jennifer could answer, the doorbell rang. Stephen Rodriguez stood on my doorstep with 2 police officers. Mr. Miller, we have search warrants for this premises and an arrest warrant for Jennifer Miller. The next hour was controlled chaos. The officers went through Jennifer's office systematically, bringing down boxes of evidence. The forged documents were all there, along with communications with real estate agents about selling my house and detailed financial records showing the true extent of her debt. Jennifer was arrested for forgery, attempted fraud, and elder financial abuse. Charles disappeared that same afternoon. Apparently, his gambling problem was a big part of Jennifer's debt spiral, and he didn't want to stick around for the consequences. 6 months later, I sat in Cook County Family Court as the judge read Jennifer's sentence. 3 years prison, suspended to probation with strict conditions, community service, mandatory financial counseling, and a restraining order keeping her away from my property. Ashley would stay with me, with Jennifer getting supervised visits twice a month. The house was secure. The workshop was mine again. Most importantly, my dignity was restored. A year after the arrest, I converted half the garage into a proper workshop space and started teaching car restoration to other veterans. We meet 3 times a week now. A dozen guys working on old Mustangs and Camaros, sharing tools and stories, and the kind of easy camaraderie that comes from understanding what it means to serve your country and work with your hands. Ashley helps out when she's not at school. She's got natural mechanical aptitude and likes learning how engines work. When I grow up, Grandpa, I want to fix things too, she told me last week while we were rebuilding a carburetor. Jennifer completed her probation last month. She's working at a coffee shop now, living in a studio apartment, still in counseling. She wrote asking if she could visit Ashley more often. Maybe someday when the time is right. But here's what I learned from all this. Your age doesn't make you worthless. Your situation today doesn't define tomorrow. And it's never too late to take your life back. I was 72 when I decided I'd had enough. Now I'm 73, and honestly, I'm just getting started. Because the people who say they love you are often the ones positioned to hurt you the most, and your family name on their birth certificate doesn't give them the right to your life savings. Remember this, your age might slow down your body, but it doesn't have to surrender your power, especially not to someone who mistakes your kindness for weakness and your gray hair for a green light to steal your future.